So let's take a look at how some of these products have evolved over the years. And SAP offers a set of core software that it continues to develop and evolve along the ways. Like, for example, the SAP ERP solution, it could be the ECC or Business Suite, and its next generation, S/4HANA, as well as SAP Business Warehouse and its next generation, which is the BW/4HANA. Now, when it comes to the evolution of SAP, my bad. When it comes to the evolution of SAP products, right? We, together with SAP, have worked very closely to make sure that these solutions are fully supported by SAP for production deployment on the AWS cloud. To give an example, right, I'm just going to run through some of these, like the ECC 6.0, which is the 2005 sort of a age range. Right? Many customers have implemented this to meet their enterprise resource planning needs. Now, this has manifested as business suite installations on a variety of databases, like I've mentioned previously just now, like your Oracle or DB2 or Microsoft SQL Server, things like that. Now, this was a main SAP product for many years, and you might encounter a variety of modules that's still in use, including things like, for example, procurement, manufacturing, supply chain, or financials. Right. For HANA, the age range is about 2011, where SAP offered an in-memory data platform. So, and this is called SAP HANA. It enables customers to sort of accelerate their business processes. It includes features where they can deliver more BI, business intelligence, and simplifies their IT environment. So, the foundation of services in this case removes the burden of maintaining separate legacy systems, as well as making sure that the data are not as siloed as before. So customers can run live testing, make better business decisions, and so on and so forth. And across the years, after that, we have BW on HANA 2012, where SAP released this as a simpler, faster, more flexible data warehouse. This was the first solution to run on HANA, right? And it took advantage of the in-memory capability to provide faster responses without having the need to have predefined cubes, if you will. So, but for majority of the cases, customers don't consider this as mission critical. In 2013, Suite on HANA was released. This gives customers access to fully integrated applications like SAP ERP, CRM, SCM, SRM, and it enables customers to run core business operations more efficiently. DR and HA are key components of the architecture to secure business continuity, and this is very integral to this Suite on HANA product. 2015 is where S/4HANA was born. It provides real-time enterprise resource management for digital business. So similar to HANA, it has it's a real-time enterprise resource, but it's for a resource management suite for digital business. It's in memory, right? So it has an in-memory platform. Okay, and last but not least, in 2016, we have BW/4HANA. So it's an upgrade on the business warehouse. This is released to provide clients with a way to collect and connect any data in real time. So SAP considers this as the next generation data warehouse. It's built entirely on advanced in-memory platform, which is the SAP HANA. And it offers enhanced data modeling, enhanced governance, high-performance solution development, as well as a modern UX with increased flexibility. Right? So in a nutshell, these are what's there from an ERP perspective. Now, from a PaaS perspective, right, we have things like SAP Cloud Platform, or SCP for short. So this was actually formerly known as the SAP HANA Cloud Platform. And it is an in-memory PaaS product that allows users to create and test HANA-based cloud applications. It provides an agile PaaS for digital transformation with a comprehensive application development range of services, as well as capabilities to build an integrated and optimized enterprise. So what is it exactly? First, in-memory platform as a service. What does it do? It provides a platform for creating and testing HANA-based applications. How does it help? There you go. And what are the benefits? Accelerated business, digital transformation. Cool. Now, of course, we need to talk about HEC, which is the HANA Enterprise Cloud. So this is a fully scalable and secure private managed cloud solution, which provides the full value of SAP HANA in the cloud while accelerating growth, helping customers to accelerate their growth through innovation, driving digital transformation, as well as rapidly delivering business outcomes. So the production, it provides production availability. It spans the entire application and infrastructure stack. It's a full menu of functional and technical services, and it gives customers the control that they would expect from an on-premise environment in just one privately managed environment. So it's adaptable, it's scalable, and it requires less time and cost to go live, right? The SaaS solutions would involve things like all of these, as well as these, and as well as these. So the last two are more of supported operating systems and supported database platforms that's on AWS. Right? So these SaaS solutions, in a nutshell, and no, I'm not going to go through every single one of them. Some of these I've gone through. I'm not going to go through the entire one. If not, we won't be able to finish for today. But in summary, these are solutions that help customers to do a couple of things, right? Number one, to rapidly adopt the latest SAP technologies and solutions that fits their requirements. Number two, integrate with other SaaS and on-premise products. Number three, extend the SAP cloud software with third-party applications. And number four, very importantly, to help customers reduce costs and simplify the IT landscape. All right, so some of this, I know I'm going to sound a little bit long-winded and like a nag, but please do note in a slide earlier that I've shared with you that's highlighted in yellow, some of these applications run exclusively on AWS. Like, for example, Concur, SuccessFactors, etc., etc. There's a number of those. And it's a very key differentiator why customers want to run SAP workloads on AWS, because you don't want to separate it, right? So there you go. Now, I want to be able to help you with making sure that you have the right reach, or rather the right access to details of these services, although I'm not going through all of them. So I'm going to paste on the chat again this link where you can go into the various SaaS offerings if you want to find out or get more a refresher of what it's built for. Okay. So far, so good, everyone. How are we tracking? Cool. Thank you, Panam. Thank you, Deepesh. Right. I certainly hope that I'm not boring all of you to death. Okay. Okay. Because the next bit is a bit boring for me. This next bit is about licensing and support. It's important. Yes, I know that. It's just that it's a little bit dry. Oh, thank you for your kind words, Deepesh. Because when it comes to licensing, and this is a topic that I really don't like, because personally, I'm not a fan of how some companies leverage licensing and contracts as a mean to earn more money from the customers. Because the customers, and I'm a customer on the receiving end, most of the time I find myself, I'm not sure whether if you see this, I find myself on the receiving end where the vendor reserves the rights to change the terms and conditions in licensing and contracts. And despite the fact that as a customer, I am paying, I have no choice but to agree, right? So it's a very weird scenario from a business perspective, which is why, in joining AWS, I'm really glad that we don't do this here. Right. There is a question, two questions actually. Do we have separate training on different SAP solutions? I'm afraid, Najendra, that we don't have a training from partner training that dives deep into the various solutions that I was sharing with you just now. But we can, if you have such a requirement, please do raise that through your a partner development representative or partner manager, and perhaps we can coordinate with the partner segment lead, the SAP leads organization. Okay, we certainly look forward to be able to support all our partners as best as we can. Okay, frankly, pricing is what clients in India first look at. Yes, Deepesh, and I would go so far as to say that this is not unique to the India market, right? In the overall emerging market countries, right, so to speak, cost is a very important factor, and which is why, because it's important, I think that we should not just rush into it, because if we're going to do a cost-to-cost, product-to-product comparison, that is actually not a fair comparison, because there are a lot of services on AWS that has service limits within which the service is free, or the service in and of itself is free. So I think the most fair way is to look at either a complete architecture or complete solution or complete application and determine what is the overall cost versus performance, and then map that out as a comparison against what other people offer. I think that is the fairest way to provide the customer with an understanding of cost of ownership, so that they can make an informed decision. Right? It's always about a cost to performance ratio. And I think that a lot of customers out there, as an example, would not want to sacrifice security for cost, right? So how do we map it and make sure that they get the best value, the best performance to cost ratio? I think that's very important. Cool. Right. Now let's charge into licensing and support. So typically, SAP customers would have already made significant investment into SAP licenses. So it naturally follows that licensing is an important issue for customers, despite the fact that Casper doesn't like this topic. But anyway, let's take a closer look at how SAP on AWS interacts, right, with existing and new SAP licenses. So customers have a choice, all right? In general, SAP on AWS uses a bring your own software and bring your own license model. So SAP customers and partners can use their existing SAP licenses on AWS without additional cost, which is great, right? So this is the primary model for most SAP applications and database products on AWS. Customers can bring existing SAP licenses, as I've said just now. Some SAP solutions are available on AWS with an on-demand or free trial or free developer licenses. Now, this may change over time. So the best way to go about understanding this is to have that conversation and make that opportunity specific or proof of concept specific with your partner development managers or your partner development representatives, because they then can share with you what is the latest update on POC funding, AWS credits, as well as sandbox credits that might be accessible to you, right, based off of that opportunity that you're working on with a customer. All right. Like I said earlier, we were really not joking when we say we want to support our partners and support our customers. And last but not least, some SAP products are sold on the AWS marketplace with a consumption model, pay-as-you-go licensing. Right. So there you go. This is licensing. And there's some frequently asked questions. So ahead of you asking me that question or asking us that question, I'm going to just very quickly list all of them out for you in case you are wondering about this. Like, does AWS sell SAP licenses? No. Right? We don't sell, we don't resell. Customers or partners, on behalf of the customers, have to engage with your SAP counterpart to find an AWS SAP partner and to sell that license. And if you are an SAP partner, then you can sell the license. But AWS doesn't sell the license. Okay. Can I use existing license? Yes, they can. How do SAP CPU-based licenses work? Well, we map that. We map the stats according to the number of EC2 virtual cores. Right, so there is a tool on SAP that you can use to map that stats. How does operating system licensing work? It's included an hourly price on EC2 instance, so there is no surprise there. This is the on-demand pricing model of EC2 instances. And how does database licensing for SAP? Well, it's bring your own license. There's no extra cost. Okay. So here you go. Now, when it comes to support, there is an end-to-end support for SAP on AWS. So this is the AWS support provides 24/7 one-to-one technical support, and customers can choose a tier that best meets their requirements. So what I'm going to do is, because there is a lot of details on SLAs that's in there, and for the purpose of today, we're not going to dive into the SLA for the different support tiers on AWS. I'm going to put that link there for you to read at your own pleasure. But I do need to remind you that, inform you in case you don't know, AWS Premium support is required only when running SAP production systems on AWS. This is not a requirement from AWS. This is a requirement from SAP. So for those of you who might have that SAP login, I am going to paste the associated SAP note that articulates this. Can everyone see that on the chat? Right. There are some questions coming up as well. Pre-sale solution support. In a way we do. I'm just personally not sure what is the arrangement like in India amongst the partner development representative and the partner managers. So I think the partner team, right, the partner manager or the partner development rep will be best suited to give you details on how to support you in your pre-sales sort of engagement with the customer. But we do also have partner solution architects or PSAs to support you, right? All SAP licenses are BYOL. Yes, there isn't a segmentation per se, Melvin. Yes, pre-sale support. Yes, this is precisely what I was referring to, Deepesh. The enterprise agreement it sits with SAP, Melvin. So that's why I was trying to make sure that I articulate this. At AWS, we do not sell the license. They bring it. Customers bring it to AWS after purchasing it from either a partner or from SAP directly. Okay. Cyril has a very good question. So, in the event of running SAP on AWS, who provides solution to SAP issues like performance issues, right? So, we have two modes. You can either go on to if you have already an SAP license and an SAP support, go direct. I would suggest that you go directly to SAP. We have an AWS support staff with SAP, and they can go. That's the fastest route. A slower route would be to reach out to AWS, and then we will then reach out to SAP for you, right? If you are running SAP PaaS or SaaS solutions. But I've tried to gather more information around the experiences this on customer support on this, and my observation and my findings is that going to SAP support is the fastest route, because while we have AWS support staff with SAP, there isn't a SAP support staff sitting with AWS. Okay. Yes. So continue to raise that ticket with SAP. Cyril, thank you for that. All right, so that spells module 2. Pretty light, right? How are you feeling so far? So far, so good? I think it's, what time is it right now? It's, let me just do a very quick check. It is 11:20 right now. Okay. So what I am proposing to do is to soldier on until we hit about 12 noon, and then give everyone a very quick 15-minute break, and then finish off at 1 p.m. your time. How does that sound to everyone? Deepesh has a question on SAP reference architectures. Yes, you can find that very easily. We have 3 gold standard ones in what do you call that? Quick starts, and then you might find some on the AWS Architecture Center. Yeah. So just search for AWS Architecture Center, and you will find actually more than just SAP reference architectures. We have reference architectures for a lot of stuff in there. It's a very nice repository. Oh, the webinar. Oh, it says until 5 p.m. IST. That's interesting. Is everyone seeing the same thing, that this webinar is until 5 p.m.? If you can let me know in the chat, I would appreciate that. All right, cool. All right. If that is the case, I have if you don't mind, I would really like to spend more time on the slides with you until it's done, and so that we don't have to rush and end at 1 p.m. your time. Does that sound good to everyone? Okay, cool. So some of you works good. Okay. So some felt that it's better to wrap up around 1. I will do my best to do that. Maybe if need be, maybe extend another 30 minutes or so. Right. I'm pretty sure we can end at about 1:30. Right. There is a question on whether if we provide special demo instance for partners to build capability from Saravana. Yes, we do have sandbox credits. So now the amount of sandbox credits or AWS credits will depend on the partner tiering. So this is precisely the reason why I would recommend that you have a conversation with your partner manager or PDR to find out what is available for you. Okay. Cool. All right, neat. So let's charge into SAP on AWS opportunities. Where can we all find opportunities? Right. So I'm going to skip past the objectives because I'm pretty sure that you can read for yourself and go straight for the meat. All right. So let's first touch on the entry points for SAP on AWS. Now, to determine what are suitable entry points for SAP on AWS, it is important to map out what are the adoption drivers. What are adoption drivers? These are basically reasons why customers want to have SAP on AWS. And I would like to point to an earlier comment where one of the participants was saying that for customers in India, cost is the concern, right? Is all the main concern. And here is where I would allude to that. Because typically, yes, we also observe that customers focus on cost savings as a primary driver for cloud adoption, right? But that being said, oh, wait. Okay. That being said, while cost is important, there are also several other factors that needs to be emphasized in the customer conversation to help them to understand it's not just cost. Cost is important, but it's not just cost. And some of these drivers would be things like, for example, if they are corporate restructuring, their business expansion out of the domestic market. What about the resilience and performance that I've spoken about earlier? Things like technical refresh, things like security and compliance, as well as the speed at which they can do their product upgrade, while making sure that there is minimal disruption to whatever it is that they're running. Right. So understanding or helping the customers to understand their own scenario is critical, because when we talk to different stakeholders in a customer organization, their primary concern would be very different. And here is what I mean. If we go and talk to a developer, right, in a customer organization, the developer's concern or the chief developer's concern will be around, what tools they have, how fast, not having to provision and all that kind of stuff. All right, so there might be concerns surrounding tool sets, a range of tools, breadth of services, concerns surrounding cost because they have to manage their own department P&L. But they might not have that view on business outcomes, right? Whereas if we speak to a CFO, then the CFO might not necessarily share the concerns on tech, but have more concerns surrounding cost optimization, as well as maybe audits, security, and compliance, right? Things like that. So we need to be able to address the needs of different stakeholders in the customer's organization and build that overall view of why is this solution better? Why is SAP on AWS the best performance to cost ratio? Okay. Right. So the key scenarios, right, basically is split into three things, right? Whoops, my bad. It's split into three things. And so many opportunities exist for marketing SAP on AWS. These three scenarios is something that I think can help you with engaging in that conversation with the customers. The scenario that you use will really depend on the needs and the characteristics of the customers, but broadly, if it's surrounding deploying new products, this is where the customers might want to purchase a new product or upgrade an existing one, but their infrastructure cannot support either. Right? If it's about refreshing hardware, then this is a situation where the day-to-day business transactions and the company growth begins to have a strain on their on-premise infrastructure and they can't support it anymore, or they're coming to max capacity and they're starting to struggle with provisioning for additional capacity. The third one is when we're thinking of transforming the enterprise, where business need to cut cost, innovate, and infrastructure is right at the top of the spending list. Now, if I were to allude that to real life examples, right, it will be around a situation where in light of the current uncertainty in the COVID-19 situation, where the IMF has declared a global recession. Well, I'm personally not of the opinion, or rather, I'm personally of the opinion that we didn't manage to emerge from the last global recession, but we just headed straight into a new one. It's like a new low. A lot of businesses are struggling, right? Very recently, I heard of a new case where my friend is working on, and my friend is not from AWS, right? So the customer is in the events space, event. Right, so they host and market, organize, host and market large scale events for entertainment companies and all that sort of stuff. Now, in this situation, they're being hit bad because you can't have that physical event. Right, so initially they were trying to provision and buy additional capacity for their data centers, and it's come to a case where that project is due for implementation, right? The PO was signed, and all that it took was to ship the goods for them to receive and start that implementation and deployment, and bug fixing and going live, right? Going live with bug fixing, sorry. But because of the COVID-19 situation, they can't receive the hardware. It is true, right? They're having problems coming up with the process to make sure that their staff is protected and they can receive the hardware, much less to go into that implementation, little migrations of applications along the way. So they can't accept the goods. The deal was stuck. Right, but when my friend and I asked my friend this, I was like, but in this current situation, it's okay for them because they're not experiencing load, so they don't have revenue, they can't conduct their business, so they're probably thinking it's okay for this to be frozen. But why aren't they thinking of how they can continue to engage with their own customers and keep their business afloat and try to have at least some form of revenue in place? Like thinking along the lines of improving their sales or coming up with an integrated platform within them, so where they can host virtual events, right? Stuff like that. Continually engaging with the customers, because if they don't, if their competitors, other events companies do, they are going to lose out. They might not emerge from the COVID-19 situation as an operating company. It can be as dire as that. Right. So in transforming the enterprise, it's not just about cutting costs. It's about how do they sustain their business? How do they innovate for survivability? Okay. So critical scenarios. What drives the pus Well, who drives the bus in SAP AWS? A good question, Deepesh. At the risk of sounding like a politician, I'm really not. In fact, politics ranks very low for me. I would make an extremely bad politician. I'm going to be super candid and say that it's really the customer who drives this. The customer's expenditure, right, off of the core compute, networking, storage, would go into how AWS earns money, right, as well as how SAP earns money on AWS. Cool. It's their consumption, because everything that we do is a consumption sort of a model on AWS. Whereas for SAP, they might have services that require subscription and they earn off of that. Right? Now, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the three scenarios. So the first one, when it comes to deploying new products, the challenge that customers face, especially when it comes to SAP, is that the updates require more space, more storage, or they require new hardware. So when customers want to upgrade an older version of an SAP product, they run into capacity issues with their existing infrastructure. And updates, you cannot disregard hard updates, because updates might have security implications, not just performance, right? Or in the second scenario where SAP releases a new product. So when SAP releases this new product, customers will actually face the same infrastructure problems, whether they need to upgrade their hardware in order to try the new product, or upgrade the hardware so that they can use the new release. So in both cases, because AWS takes care of the infrastructure and removes that from the customer equation, right? Customers find that instead of increasing cost with hardware upgrades, they just run their SAP workloads on AWS. Now, if they are deciding to use a bigger compute instance, they might find that with the increased performance, the compute time is lowered, and therefore they might have cost savings in the same breath. And this is precisely what this company called Bristol Myers Squibb has experienced. Now, this is a global biopharmaceutical company, right? So they're committed to discovering, developing, and delivering innovative and creative medicines that helps patients to prevail over serious illnesses. And they've migrated over to AWS. And they're running their the SAP workloads on AWS. So there isn't I've curated this, and I think that this is a great case study as well. So far, I've shared with you two. One is Dohom, which is retail. The second one is Pacific Interlink. This third one is in the biopharmaceutical space. So I'm trying to give you various flavors across various industries. Yeah, so in terms of, there is a very interesting question that I really can't ignore. So CEO, CIO, CTO, CMO, CFO, yes, Deepesh. From a customer engagement point of view, it's not just AWS. My personal recommendation, and I've rolled through the mud many times, and I have more than a few examples to share with you, personal experience, where if the engagement is not across the board, the project will get stalled. And sometimes I didn't, in the past tense, I've put down my salesperson hat right now. But in the past, I couldn't even figure out why. Different stakeholders have different functional deliverables, meaning different KPIs. And if we are building a solution for the customer organization, we need to be able to fulfill most, if not all, of the functional KPIs of all the various stakeholders in order for them to emphatically say yes. Because a migration to the cloud is a shift in business paradigm. Okay. Cool. So I recommend that in your own time, please have a look at this case study from Bristol Myers Squibb. In a nutshell, the challenges that this company faced, was that they want to process large amounts of data securely. They want to allow their scientists to run clinical simulations to reduce the number of subjects in trials, and that has a cost element to that and speed element to that, as well as a capacity provisioning element to that. So the solution ultimately was one where they used AWS to build a secure self-provisioning portal for on-demand clinical trial simulations and research, right? So all they need to do is to, as a company, establish rules so that they can keep their compute costs low. And as part and parcel of that, they use a service called CloudWatch to measure the matrices and give them an automatic alert if they are approaching limits that they set for themselves. The benefits coming off of that is that the compute-intensive clinical trial simulations, where it previously took 60 hours, is reduced down to 1.2 hours, right? And running simulations has proven to be 98% faster. It's more efficient, and because it's faster as well, it's also less costly, right? To conduct those clinical trials and provide a better condition for patients, right? So I'm not going to steal the thunder of the person in the video, so I'm going to leave you to your viewing pleasure on this one. Now, when it comes to the second scenario, which surrounds refreshing hardware. So on average, I'll share with you, SAP customers refresh their hardware every 3 to 5 years, right? Now, to be absolutely honest, this is not surprising because this was the normal run of things for hardware refresh, right? So what I'm trying to say is it doesn't go different from the normal hardware refresh cycles. But in emerging markets, 3 to 5 years might not apply, right? My personal observation is that companies will try to milk every last drop of their hardware until it fails beyond repair, right? But this is where it gets dangerous, because how do we draw that line on risk? While we're trying to maximize our hardware investment, how do we draw that line to make sure that we're not running into situations where it's high risk? When things fail, we're caught on the back foot, we cannot provision in time, and basically the system just crashes and we can't serve the consumers anymore. It's very hard to draw that line. Forecasting is already a very risky business where at best it's a 50-50 guess, right? So it's hard to be able to keep the lights on, keep the cost down, and keep the customer experience great. How in an on-premise infrastructure sort of an environment. But SAP is the kind of workload that demands consistent performance, right? So with millions of transactions that can be processed in a day, the systems and databases, even when we're not talking about the future, they slow down as they grow. So it's not surprising that customers need constantly new servers, more storage, and improved networking equipment to meet the demands as the years roll on. So that's why, in a SAP landscape, it is essential to understand where, for a customer on the SAP roadmap, when the next hardware refresh is possible, and help them to understand that, hey, look, you really should think about you should think about a situation where it's not a refresh, but possibly a replatforming. Why do we do away with refresh programs? You want to milk every last drop, but you don't want to have to manage the risk. What if the SLA of the hardware infrastructure is taken care of by AWS? You manage and look after the performance, the administration, as well as the cost optimization of your SAP workloads on AWS. You focus your energies on that, especially if the cost performance ratio is so important to you. Make sense? So that would be what we would recommend. I would stick my neck out and personally say this. I would recommend as a context for that engagement when it comes to refreshing hardware. I would love it if you can let me know if what I've shared so far resonates with you. Is it relevant, or is it Casper dreaming? I'd love to know your view and your inputs. So far, so good, everyone? All right. Thank you, Melvin. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Punam. Cool. So as a demonstration of a scenario of refreshing hardware, this is precisely... yeah, thank you, Parvish. This is precisely the path that this a company called Seco Global has gone through. So they are the world's largest sea container leasing company. If memory serves me right, their assets are more than 7 billion right now, actually. No, wait. It might have gone down because of the recent COVID-19 situation. So I'm sorry, I don't understand. I have a view of what their assets are right now, because shipping has taken a nosedive. If you've seen that, but at its peak, if memory serves me right, they have assets in excess of 7 billion. So they were running into that sort of hardware refresh challenge that I've shared with you just now, and this is the case study. Wait, let me just very quickly put that link onto the chat so that you can have a look at it in your viewing pleasure. So if you have customers who are in the container leasing, or actually, to be honest with you, any kind of a leasing environment where they're facing refresh hardware challenges, this is a great case study to share with them, to show them that, look, you're not alone, and AWS has experience. You can do this on AWS. We as a partner, we are here to help you. Make sense? All right. So just as before, this is a summary. Whoops, my bad. This is a summary of the challenges that Seco Global has faced. I'm going to leave you. No. You know what? I'm going to dive deep for you, because I think this is interesting. It might be very relevant to you. So the challenge, what's not on here, is that they've been hosting specific SAP applications, SAP ERP, CRM, Business Warehouse, PI, SAP Process Integration, SAP Portal, SAP Gateway, Content Server, Solutions Manager, all of these in 2 traditional data centers, and both of them are in the UK. Okay, so the infrastructure in these data centers was old and slow, and outages were becoming increasingly frequent. So this was causing headaches for the business, because you can imagine, be it external facing, internal facing, if you can't access, you can't really work. So they were looking for the cheapest way to get back on track, while at the same time be able to build a foundation for future growth, right? So it's the business objective was sort of twofold. Ultimately, the solution that was deployed was an SAP environment running EC2 instances, along with S3 for object storage, Glacier for data archiving and online backup, They were using EBS, Elastic Block Store, for that sort of persistent block level storage volume, as well as a low latency performance, because you can provision IOPS in there to run SQL's workloads. They were using VPC. Well, this is standard, right? It's a VPC is short for Virtual Private Cloud, a logically perfectly isolated portion of the AWS public cloud. Right, they use multiple VPC, so they were using VPC peering, which is separated for security and performance improvements. At the very minimum, they have one VPC for production environment, one VPC for dev, and one VPC for test. Right, I think they have more than one production environment. They were using Direct Connect as well, because they weren't about to abandon their on-premise, so they created a hybrid environment. So they used Direct Connect to create that dedicated connection between its headquarters in Singapore, as well as its other offices as well. They use IAM to securely control that access to AWS services and resources, as well as their SAP workloads on AWS, access to that. They also use CloudWatch to monitor cloud resources, as well as CloudTrail to log all API calls, right, to check changes in their networks. So the benefits that they've gleaned was that they've saved more than 50% in IT infrastructure, as well as maintenance costs, while on top of that, achieving greater business flexibility. Right, you will hear this from the person in the video, but they've also managed to reduce the billing process to less than 1 day, and this is a time saving of more than 75%. They were also able to quickly scale capacity both up and down. Now, they automated this through the use of auto scaling groups for its compute requirements, right? Or as their compute requirements change. Last but not least, they've managed to create a DR environment where disaster recovery can be done in less than 1 day, compared to what previously it would have taken them 1 week. Right. So there you go. A very important benefits that they have achieved. Question was, as SQL already have an existing data center, how were they able to reduce CapEx? Right. So CapEx is past tense. It's already spent. What we're measuring is the total cost of ownership if they were to host on-prem rather than on AWS. So compared against what it would otherwise cost them to host the additional capacity on-prem, or run the SAP workloads that they've migrated, right, on-prem, they would have they saved more than 50%. Make sense? Cool. All right. So the last scenario is when we talk about transforming the enterprise. Now I'm going to just pull all of these down, because transforming the enterprise is a very serious and very deep topic, because it means that the entire enterprise, the entire business needs to change, right? Like I've said earlier, it's a paradigm shift. This is even more so. Right, when we look at refreshing hardware, it can be workload specific, right? When we are, like for example, in SQL's case, workloads specific. But when it comes to transforming the enterprise, it's more profound, than that. So when a company's finance department, right, as an example, looks to identify areas for cost savings, on-premise infrastructure stands out like a sore thumb, right? Because this is a large expense. I've never come across a company who year on year have to allocate less budget for running their data center. At best, it is the same. On average, most of the time, it increases, right? Now, today, an opportunity exists where partners can help customers build a case for moving to the cloud, and it helped the finance department understand how costs can be optimized, pretty much like the SQL case. On-premise infrastructure costs, it's only a fraction. It can become only a fraction of the SAP operating cost. So let me give an example, right? Customers can run SAP S4HANA, BW/4HANA, SAP Analytical Solutions, and other SAP solutions and databases on AWS. These are on a consumption model, right? So they don't have to host this on-prem where they have to put in CapEx, capital investment, right? So a business case for moving SAP to AWS would contain the benefits surrounding these things that you see on the slide right here: a total cost of ownership comparison, the new value that the customer can derive from digital data that's more malleable, that's more flexible. They have means right now to build for higher levels of automation, and innovation, experimentation, failure comes at lower stakes. They have increased agility to respond to be it market events or react to the competitors' advancements or new features. And last but not least, they can dramatically reduce risk, including things like reliability, availability, performance, or DR, enabling HA, all in the same breath. So at the end of the day, the focus really is on building that business outcome for the customer. All right, cost savings, increasing staff productivity, increasing their operational resilience, increasing their business agility. So business value coming off of this is not a point; it is a spectrum. It's a range of things. I hope you can see that. Okay. Right, and a very, very good example of this would be from this company called Visi, which you might be familiar with. This is in the chat, a link to the video. So Visi is in the business of packaging, right? Hence why I said that you might know them. So they don't have to worry about infrastructure anymore. They are focusing all their all their new business initiatives, right, around product innovation, around packaging. So this is a great case study where, this is the one where you should be able to get through the case study on your own. Right. So what I've done is basically just migrate their entire SAP environment into AWS. Right, provisioning is a whole lot. 93% is astounding, and being able to significantly reduce costs and all of that good stuff. All right. So there you go. I am going to take this opportunity to share with you the written case study aside from the video for Visi as well, where it contains more details. Cool. How are we doing so far, everyone? So far, so good? I hope you like the case studies that I've shared with you, and I hope that the different flavors across the industries work for you. Now, thank you, Deepesh. Before we go into module 4, I am going to propose that we have another 15-minute break. It's about 12. No, actually, let's do a 20-minute break. It's about 12 noon your time right now. So we come back at 12:15, and then we'll proceed on with module 4 and module 5. And we should finish anytime between 1 to 1:30 p.m. your time. How does that sound to you? Is it okay? India case study. I'm afraid I haven't come across one. There might be, because all the references that I've drawn are publicly referenceable cases. You might get a more, I am a regional asset, so I don't have an in-depth view of what it looks like in the India landscape. So perhaps you can have a conversation with the either the SAP segment lead or I think the SAP segment lead will be the fastest way you can get hold of some of those. Okay. The other question is, can we get a recording of this session? I'm sorry, Mohit. We do have some policies surrounding recording, so we don't have a recording of the session. But you can feel free to revisit a digital version of this course, or the next time we deliver this as an instructor virtual session. All right. Please feel free to join in then as well. Now, the digital version doesn't go as deep as I have when it comes to the case studies and then, the articulation of stuff, but it certainly serves as a good reinforcement of what I've shared with you. Okay, cool. So let's take a break and come back at 12:15 your time and soldier on to module 4 and module 5. Cool. Thank you all. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, comments, feedbacks, please feel free to put that out. We will answer to the best of our abilities. All right, everyone, welcome back. I hope we're good to continue. Cool. Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Aditya and Shivendra. Thank you so much. Neat. So for this next segment, we're going to talk about what lies beyond the infrastructure for SAP. Right. So far we've talked about a number of use cases, a number of scenarios that I think might be useful to you across a mixture of industries. And prior to that, we've discussed what is SAP, why SAP, why AWS for SAP, right? And we've moved along very nicely so far. So this is extending that beyond and bringing additional and incremental value across more flavors of customers. So there are a number of industry solutions that I would like to share with you. So when we look across cloud solutions for industries, it's interesting to note that AWS supports all our millions of customers in many different industries. And I was really curious. I was trying to find out whether if there was a vertical that AWS was not in it. And no, I haven't been successful so far. So my current finding is no matter what kind of a vertical that our customers are working on or you are working on as a partner, AWS has references for large production customers in that area. And specifically for the purpose of today, large production customers in the area who are successfully running SAP workloads on the AWS platform. Now, they might not be country specific, right? Meaning to say, to a previous question of whether if there is an India case study, I really don't know. But from what I can find so far was that, if you look at the graphic in front of you, the slide, it shows 5 general industry groups with some sample of customers across the industries. So what we're going to do right now is to focus on some of these industries within the groups and then outline the unique set of business challenges and then how do we help them to address this, the challenges that they face, as well as the kind of benefits that they have gleaned from jumping onto AWS, right? With the SAP lens, of course, right? Cool. So let's first look at the power and utilities industry. And this particular customer is called NG, right? So NG faces the industry challenges of increasing risk and regulatory requirements. So they want to move to a more modern and digital enterprise to meet more consumer demands. And you can probably, so NG is in the power and utilities industry. They provide power to their consumers. So one of the key, so here are some of the key benefits that they've managed to glean since moving on to using SAP on AWS. Number one, they were able to improve their customer engagement and insights, boost their efficiency in operations and asset management, as well as reduce the total cost of ownership for systems compared against what they would otherwise be paying had they been running on premise, right? So the numbers are there, the details are here. Give me a second and I will paste this onto the chat for everyone. Boom, there, oops. Once again, I've pasted in the wrong place. There you go, everyone. There you go. So if you have customers who are involved in the energy sector, I think NG is a very good example, right? In before a POC, helping the customer understand what are the potential benefits they can glean from doing that, and maybe using this as a template for you to ask and verify if whether they're facing the same kind of industry challenges that NG was facing. Okay. Now, the other segment will be from the insurance industry. I think you are familiar with AIG, right? So, big company, very big company. It's a global company, right? So the challenges that they face was with updating their legacy infrastructure. So they face that refresh hardware sort of a scenario. They are also facing regulatory pressures because the regulations and compliance requirements across the various countries that they operate in are different, right? So, and they change over time. So they're facing some of these pressures. They were also finding themselves in a situation where they need to address increasing pricing pressure as far as commodities go, right? Commodity pricing goes. And last but not least, the amount of claims that they're coming in as their business grows is increasing. So they want to be able to handle the increase in terms of frequency as well as the severity of the claims. So since moving on to AWS, moving the SAP workloads onto AWS, they were now able to address a broad set of regulatory and compliance frameworks by leveraging on the documentation, attestations, and certifications that AWS owns and complies to, and use that. So they don't have to go on a separate audit if AWS satisfies it already, right? Next, on top of that, they found that the analytical tools that AWS has were really useful, and because they were building that platform on AWS, they were able to access and use these analytical tools without too much problem or having to go into technical validation and understand whether if there are going to be complexities when using different tools. Third, they were able to get better customer insights coming off of that usage of analytical tools. And lastly, they were able to reduce the total cost of ownership as well when compared against an on-premise infrastructure. So here is the text case study for AIG. And here are the, whoops. Sorry about that. Here's the data. So when I was saying reduce TCO and all those kind of stuff, it realistically is a 40% performance improvement, a 71% reduction in database size, right? And therefore a lower cost because we're on a consumption basis, and 50% annual run rate reduction, plus they were able to scale down or reduce the build times from 2 months to 1 hour. And this is dramatic. As you can probably imagine, there are a lot of happy faces in the development team. So there you go. Cool. Right. So, oh, yes, Dipesh. I realized belatedly that I was talking without showing you all of these. My bad. Right. The next industry is in the manufacturing industry. This is really close to my heart because I graduated as a civil engineer, never practiced, right? And then I started my career, built my whole career in IT, and it was around the sales, product marketing, product and product marketing side of things, commercial side of things in the IT industry. So I'm not a technical person. The closest relationship I have with the word engineer is my university degree. But anyway, so my father used to work for Asahi Glass. And interestingly enough, Asahi Glass, I found in recent times, is also an AWS customer. So ahead of myself as an extra for for all of you good folks here, give me a minute while I locate that. Asahi Glass has a case study in the, man, where did I put that? Ah, yeah, here. Okay. Case study on AWS. It's a very old company. It was founded in early 1900s. So I personally think that this is interesting for a few reasons. I'm going to share this with you in a short while's time and dive slightly deeper into manufacturing. So in the case of Sumitomo Chemical as well as Whirlpool, these are two different companies. They face similar set of challenges, right? And I'm going to put it all in there for you. So number one, as a manufacturing company, they need to make sure that their operations are always on, meaning 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They cannot die, right? No way. They cannot stop manufacturing, right? And most crucial for a lot of these manufacturing companies is IP rights, intellectual property rights. They want to protect and secure their IP. Because they collect a lot of data, or they're in a position to be able to collect a lot of data, they want to make sure that the data is malleable enough. It's not so much about harnessing the data, although it is a point to take note of. It's more about it's not about harvesting the data, ingesting the data, getting the data. It's also about harnessing it, the ability to use it. So as you can imagine, tape storage, clunky, right? It's hard because you get a lot of return errors when you try to retrieve all of tape storage. They want to unleash the true potential of the data that they have, or they have the ability to collect, and bring about insights that can change the way in which they manufacture, or change the product line, change the design. And last but not least, just like everybody else, they want to reduce cost. Okay. So ever since using SAP on AWS, these three are the general key benefits that they have managed to achieve. IoT connectivity, this is where I want to zoom in a little bit more, because as these companies manufacture stuff, they have, like I was saying earlier, they are in a position to be able to harvest a lot of data, right? Collect a lot of data. And one of the ways is to use IoT devices, right? And with that, they can gauge the performance on a consumer perspective, build out, and from a manufacturing standpoint, we need to be able to have clarity on failure rates. This is, I cannot emphasize the importance of failure rates, because on one side of the scale, it deals with customer satisfaction. Consumers wouldn't want to buy something that breaks very frequently. But in order to prevent something from breaking frequently, you need to make sure that you have the right raw materials in place and the right production process in place, so that the outcome, because it's down to a component level, right? I was in the I was working for a manufacturer in the ed tech space, so I want to know that company is called Promethean. For those of you who have checked, my LinkedIn profile, you would have seen that company. They manufacture and sell and distribute and sell interactive whiteboards and interactive flat panels. They build their own software, and it's evolved into a cloud platform for teaching and learning as well. All right, so there you go. The third one, so IoT in the sense of helping them to harness the data, the storage on AWS of the backend, where it makes the data more malleable. They can easily build out a data lake and pair that with a data warehouse, SAP, BW / HANA as an example, to leverage on the power of the data. All right. So, and last but not least, they were able to then streamline their operations, reduce costs with intelligent automation and cloud, but more importantly, give them a view of how to improve their manufacturing process. So the two different companies realized two different sets of data points when it comes to benefits. For Sumitomo Chemical, it's a 40% reduction in job processing time. They currently 1,000 plus SAPs running on S4HANA on AWS. For Whirlpool, it's they're using 6 terabyte HANA EC2 high memory instances. And right now, instead of having a previous 5-day environment refresh time, it's only 8 hours, being kept to a very bare minimum. Okay. What I'm gonna do right now is to share with you the case study on Sumitomo Chemical, as well as a video case study on Whirlpool. And on that note, although I don't remember whether if this company called Carrier, which is in the same industry as both of these companies, well, actually more Whirlpool than Sumitomo, but it's a manufacturing industry. A company called Carrier, I've typed that into the chat window. Earlier on this year, they have announced publicly that they are going to migrate onto AWS as well. Right. So there you go. Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Deepesh. Were you referring to AIG or Sumitomo or Whirlpool? 301. I think you mean Whirlpool, Sumitomo, and Carrier. I think there are a lot of manufacturing companies in India as well. Right. So that's the reason why I was spending more time talking through this, because it's not just about the SAP. SAP is a great way in, but if we can help the customers understand what lies beyond SAP, I think the potential is there. A great potential at that. Whirlpool as well. Thank you, Deepesh. Cool. So I'm going to move on to the next segment, which is also very close to my heart, retail. Because that's where my roots are in my career. I started off in retail, IT retail. So for a company called Zappos, I'm just gonna put everything on that. Right? They realized a lot of benefits, but I'm not gonna go too deep into retail in a sense that because I think retail is very straightforward. Because if we look at what's happening today, the conversation is more about how do they deal with a virtual environment and maintain that sort of customer reach and customer engagement in replacement of physical interaction, right? So to a lot of retail companies who at this time does not want to or is not capable of reinventing themselves and catering for additional means for customers or their consumers to buy their products or to market their products, they're in for a very, very rough ride. Right. So especially when we're looking globally, right, where there are a lot of e-commerce giants that are out there. Right. And I'm going to go so far as to say Amazon.com is one of them. Right. If these local retail companies are not reinventing themselves, increasingly they'll find it very hard to claw back the customers who are enjoying the benefits of having what they buy curated and delivered to them. Make sense? Right? So, and as far as retail goes, I would say that the sooner any retail company that's out there, the sooner that they can blur the lines on the boundaries of countries, meaning extend beyond their domestic markets, the better it is, because we all know that companies in retail need scale just as much as those who are in the manufacturing space. It's only when you have scale that's where you have that kind of purchasing power. It's selling power and purchasing power is relative, right? The higher the selling power is, the higher the purchasing power is. The higher the purchasing power is, the lower that they can drive down the cost of raw materials. Make sense? Right? So if it is a retail company who acts as a middleman, I think they need to focus on differentiating the value. So curating the products that they have, that they carry, is a means to differentiate that, but that's no longer a key differentiator because anybody does that. A person who runs a home-based business to curate and sell maybe, I don't know, retro clothing can say that because of my taste, right? I am a differentiator. I curate. They need to look beyond that. Right. So I certainly hope this very humble viewpoints coming from me would be useful in sparking that additional conversation with your customers and helping them to understand why today they need to change. So far, so good, everyone? Yeah. So there's a question. Which part or service of AWS Cloud exactly is used in AR, VR? Right. So this is a good question. I'm going to show you. But you need to promise me that you're not going to laugh at me. Because what I'm going to do is I am going to show you my management console. Oops. I know today is not a technical course, and no, I am not going to show you how to build. It's going to take up too much time. And it's not the purpose of today. So this is my management console. Coming off of the services, you will find that I'm really not kidding when we say that we have more than 175 services on AWS. When it comes to AR, VR, where are you? We have something called Sumerian, which is gaining a lot of traction with our customers and partners who are in that space. The Sumerian is more like it's more like a pass, right, rather than a service. So I sincerely hope that you have access to your AWS account, and then you can go and explore what kind of stuff you can do on Sumerian, because it's tightly integrated also with the AI/ML services that AWS has. Because remember, this is a PaaS. The tools that we use to build Sumerian gives it that features and functionality. Like, for example, being able to have your avatar do speech and gestures that are very lifelike. Super cool, right? This is the reason I wanted to show off a little bit. Neat. So thank you for the question. Where am I? Okay. Right. So last but not least, coming off of this, we're going to talk about life sciences, which is something that I am absolutely not familiar with. This is an industry where I have no clue. Well, okay, some. So Thermo Fisher Scientific is a lesser well-known, unless you're in the industry, a lesser well-known arm of Thermo Fisher. But their challenges are more specific. It's not so much about harvesting the data. It's got to do with what do they do with the amount of data that they have, right? Because of the sheer amount of data that they own, it's hard to crunch through all of that in a cost-effective way that gives them high performance. I mean, crunch too fast at low price. So the aim is really to come up with a means to accelerate and reduce the time, the product time to market pressure that the C-level is demanding from the entire organization. Because in crunching data, if the whole thing, the whole process is slow, the entire down chain is slow. And last but not least, they found themselves caught in a situation where reimbursing is difficult with targeted therapeutics. So the targeted therapeutics as an is a medical treatment for cancer, right? So as a slight sidetrack, our VP of the commercial team has a very personal interest. He's invested personally in cures for cancer. But anyway, we do our best, and I think if you kept tabs on the news, you'll realize that Amazon is investing big time in trying to find out faster ways for how do you say that? Analyzing the COVID virus, right? Coronavirus. Okay, cool. Anyway, so the key benefits, we were able to help Thermo Fisher Scientific achieve what their business objectives are, and more specifically, we've helped them save a lot of time in creating systems, right? From weeks down to just hours. Here in the chat is the case study for Thermo Fisher. So if you have customers in the life science space, right, I think this is a good case study for them. There is a question, any related material or case study to healthcare life? Yes. So Thermo Fisher, Sunny, is one of them, right? If you look into the case studies, the repository that I have shared earlier, you should be able to find more, right? In fact, just right off the top of my head, I remember some, like the Genome Institute of Singapore. It's a semi-government kind of, sort of an organization. They are an AWS, specializes in blood flow analysis in multiple dimensions. They are on AWS as well. Okay. GE Health. Yeah. I hope that helps you. Okay. Right. So it's worth then thinking about, so all these companies across all these different verticals have gleaned benefits. So what are the next generation service integrations that we can do? Now, when it comes to extend services, and we tend to give things a fancy name, the extend strategy for SAP on AWS pretty much works this way. I'm just going to show you everything on here. Right. So we dive into process efficiency and pay particular attention to things like agility, reduce costs. And all these are tangible benefits that can result from cloud migrations. But infrastructure migration, all right, if we just look at that, it's oftentimes only the first step in the customer's business transformation. And this is what I've been talking about so far. And I will go so far as to say, for the purpose of today, it's not just SAP. SAP is great as an entry point, but if we can give customers an even more compelling reason surrounding a more total view, or more holistic view, wholesome view, if you will, on the general business outcomes that they seek to drive, then the business case is even more compelling. Right, so the extra, I wouldn't even go so much and say extra. I would say infinite, right? And I would be very factual. Infinite opportunities that AWS can provide customers in extending business capabilities is an excellent reason for them to jump on. So the extend strategy is suitable for existing SAP on AWS customers who wants to drive business transformation by extending and integrating SAP business processes with things like big data and analytics, with things like IoT, with things like mobile applications or whatever apps or APIs or DevOps or machine learning or AR, VR or robotics. Right? The list is endless. Right. the benefits, right, of this sort of extension, if you want to put it down in a more structured and concrete form, right, looks like this. So firstly, they will achieve faster innovation, where, using AWS higher level APIs and managed services in the areas of IoT, data analytics, machine learning, and so on and so forth, the customers can innovate at startup speed and have that startup flexibility and agility without having to worry about costly infrastructure to support their SAP applications. Oh, Parvesh has put in more. Thank you so much. Data links as well. Great. Thank you, Parvesh. Thank you. Secondly, when it comes to scalability and elasticity, right, customers can break their monolithic SAP applications into highly scalable microservices using AWS. They can literally, and I would, one of my favorite quotes from Bruce Lee. If you're familiar with Bruce Lee, be like water, my friends. Right, they can switch around and find the best balance from a performance perspective, reliability perspective, security perspective, operational excellence perspective, and cost perspective that suits their needs. Best balance, right? And last but not least, cost. Of course, it's extremely important. I have never come across someone who feels that they should pay more for what they use. My generalization is that all human beings want to pay the least for the most. And at AWS, we recognize that. It's part of our ethos. We believe that. Okay, so customers can lower the cost of operations by automating mundane manual SAP application maintenance activities, right? When they're using the managed services or fully managed services or PaaS products. So on here, Sumitomo, we've covered. Zalora, I'm actually not sure that Zalora operates in India, but Zalora is also a retailer. It's a fashion retailer. Right, so they are 100% on AWS. I find their case study interesting because just coming off of the number of databases they have running off the back end, right down to the compute they use to handle the consumer-facing applications that they have, and they track refresh rates or page load rates. They have experienced nothing but excellence from AWS. And right now, they're using AWS to refresh their S/4HANA environment in a serverless manner where they don't even have to worry about provisioning at all or right-sizing at all. Lambda is one of our serverless offerings. It is a serverless compute where by code, you just need to write down in code what you want Lambda to do, and it automatically off of the backend pulls the compute infrastructure that's needed to execute against what you need. All right, so the sort of automation has helped them to reduce their SAP system refresh time from 5 to 2 days. Already 5 days is pretty short, but they managed to reduce it even further, right? And the SAP system refresh quality is also improved, right? And we're not comparing between an on-prem versus cloud. This is from cloud to serverless, all right? So this is super interesting. Now, here are some of the considerations that I hope you can keep in mind the customers might have, right? When we talk about extend strategy, right? So we can introduce the extend strategy when they need to, when customers need help with integrating the SAP applications natively with AWS. So when customers want to know more about our next generation services, with all due respect to your experience and the excellent work that your company does as a partner organization, I think the best way that AWS can support you is if we can work together step by step in step with you. So please connect with your partner managers, connect with your PDR, or connect with our SAP segment team. And they will be more than happy to help you look into these extend services, right? Because the integration types are varied. How varied are they? Well, I don't want to, put this across as scary or, out of reach. It's not out of reach, but there are a lot of specificity when it comes to extension, the extend strategy. There are four main pillars, right? Apps, APIs, IoT, big data, analytics, and DevOps. And the thing is, not all partners are specialists in these four. Right, so we are here to help you, and our natural reaction to a lot of opportunities is to find a way where partners can partner amongst themselves and work together to satisfy the customer. All right, so we have a lot of customers. We have a lot of partners who have excellent domain knowledge around these four pillars, and of course, we have our segment team as well as our ProServe team to act as a support for our partners. Okay, so please connect with us. Let us know what you think. All right. Now, one last thing I will add to this is that all these four focus pillars, focus areas are supported by a strong foundation of machine learning and compute services on AWS. Many of these solutions themselves can also, if you decide to, be built directly on AWS or on the SAP, the SAP Cloud Platform, which is available, in the regions around the globe, 7 regions around the globe. Okay. Now, in the event that you are interested, I've also put together what apps and APIs would look like. What's the meat inside the apps and API pillar, as well as the Internet of Things pillar, as well as the big data and analytics pillar, also the DevOps pillar. Okay. Cool. So far, so good. Is the question, is this part equivalent to what SCP provides? Right. So, Saravana, this is not part of what SCP provides. This is an extension beyond that. So the overarching thinking is if the customer is convinced, all right? Is convinced that they're using SAP and they're convinced that they're going to use SAP in the future to come, right? Then they come across two questions, right? So do I migrate to AWS, right? If so, migrate to what? And the second question is, why should I? Right? It's a yes or no sort of a thing, right? Now, if it is if it is a yes, I should migrate, and what it is to migrate, great, we can do that. But part of the extend strategy is to help them to think that after migration, this is also other things that we can do in the same breath, and that serves to deepen your sales engagement with that customer in a more profound level, where where the talk is around building their business for them, not building a tech platform. It's no longer just a migration conversation or a SAP conversation. Now, if it is a no, then it's about adding more compelling reasons why they should be. If you don't want to migrate SAP onto AWS, try to understand why. Right, Mr. Customer, what's stopping you? And then after that, try to find out, so what are the compelling reasons, the compelling business outcomes that you're looking for that you think will not be satisfied by moving your SAP workloads onto AWS? And then find a way to see whether if there is a relationship to the extend strategies that we have. Right? Maybe they want DevOps and they don't see how they can embrace or embody DevOps by just moving an SAP workload. Oh well, it doesn't have to be, right? So I hope that answers your question in detail, Saravana, because this is a great question. This is precisely what this segment is for. So far, so good? Just a quick question for everyone. How are you feeling right now about the session? Is it okay? So far, so good? Thank you, Saravana. Thank you, Poonam. Thank you, Narjendra. Great. Thank you, Sunil. Neat. So we are at the last part of today where we're going to talk about some guided practice. Now, in a live session, this is the part where I will break everyone up into groups and have everyone work on different scenarios and different customer engagement. However, because this is a virtual delivery, we are unable to do that. So I do sincerely, apologize. Because, in my personal experience, this is sort of the putting things into practice part, where we can think about and brainstorm how do we address customer needs in this sort of scenario, in that sort of scenario, various sort of scenarios. However, that being said, you are not going to lose out in the sense that what we have done is to put together some thinking so that you can map how you want to engage your customers. Upgrade products, is it about optimizing cost? Is it about extending with AWS? 3 broad scenarios. So the material that I will send to you is 100% what I've gone through with you today, plus a little bit of extra as resources on the side. So the scenarios that we will typically go through is from these three perspectives: upgrade, cost optimization, and extension. So the first challenge is a fictitious customer called Lampros Strategies, where a conversation with Charles Clark, the CIO, yields you some information. So first we dig with some information, background information about a company, then a conversation with the CIO, yielding some findings, and then thinking about how do we continue that conversation and what we should be proposing to the CIO of Lampros. I hope you see where I'm getting at with this. I want to be sensitive to how everyone's taking this. So if you can let me know, whether if I'm clear, that will be much appreciated. Now, what I've shown you is nothing more than a very ideal situation of what could be a conversation. And this is by no means AWS or Casper. I wouldn't be so arrogant. I'm just telling you what to ask. It's more about a framing. I'm very sure that you know your customers better than we do. Certainly better than I do. I don't even know who your customers are. But some framing on how do you lead them towards that thought process. You obviously would be able to word this in a more compelling fashion than what's written on here. What's written on here is very simplistic. Okay? Right. But as the key points, when it comes to upgrading to S/4HANA, right? Oops, my bad. Right? These are 3 main things that needs to be more explicit to the customers, right? Surrounding that sort of a conversation. And again, this modeling is not baseless. We base it upon it's sort of like a simplified version of our engagement with Brooks Brothers, who is our customer. Okay. So I'm gonna leave this to your reading pleasure. The next one is on cost optimization. If it turns that way, if you find a customer whose profile tells you they put optimization of cost above everything else, right? Then this is a very interesting thought process to go through. Okay, a fictitious company called Zargas, right? And a conversation with the CEO. Remember, this is CEO, not CIO, and you will find that the engagement talks about slightly different things. All right, and then here is the find the points that we would encourage you to be more explicit about, right, in that conversation. Cool. Thanks, Parvesh. Neat. And again, this is not unreal. This is not too fictitious because we actually modeled it after Pacific Interlink. Remember the one of the first few case studies that I was sharing with you, right? So here, oops, my bad. Here you go, right? And you will have access to the case studies. I put the links on here, so when you receive it, right, just feel free to go check this out. I personally find these business case studies super interesting because if you were to dissect it and boil it down to the underlying business issues, you'll find that it is applicable to a lot of different customers. Right? It's great talking points. And of course, last but not least, the extent. So here is the scenario where we talk about a fictitious company called any company. The background is this is a biopharmaceutical company, right? That develops patient treatments. So here's some background information and talking to CIO again, and then what we dream up to be a conversation, and then the explicit points we think is would encourage you to bring up. And while not pharmaceutical, but this is sort of modeled against Zalora. Okay. So far, so good, everyone? Right. So we are at the end of today. So I've put together a summary. Well, it's not me. I cannot take credit for this. Our curriculum team has put together a summary of what the material covers. I have gone a little bit deeper on some of these topics, but I think this summary serves as a very good revisit, right? When you're looking through the material again. I've promised you some additional resources. So here are some partner resources, as well as some SAP on AWS resources as well, all right? And with that, we have come to the end of today's session. Pretty much on time, right? So I would like to, at this moment, express a very big thank you to all of you who have joined us today and stuck all the way to the bitter end. I certainly hope that not only is this session enjoyable for you, but also useful, more importantly, useful to you. So before you go, I'd just like to let you know that I will be completing that marking of the attendance. So for those of you who are with us, you will find that this will be reflected in your transcript. I have a final ask that you spend 5 minutes. I promise you, it will not take you more than 5 minutes to fill up an evaluation. It's multiple choice, right? Please let us know what works for you and why, and if there are areas for improvement, please be very candid and honest with us. If there are areas for improvement, please let us know as well. We want to continually deliver high impact sessions for our partners. So with this knowledge, we can keep the good things, and then we can work on improving in the areas where it needs improvement. All right. So with that, thank you all so much for spending time with us. And I'd like to express a special thank you for Parvesh as well for fielding the questions. Do feel free to reach out to us if you require further clarification. We'll be more than happy to help you in the areas that we can. All right. So Thank you all for spending time. I wish you and your family and your friends safety and best of health in these uncertain times. And I hope to see all of you again sometime soon. Please feel free to leave the session. I will wait until most of you are gone before I close this. Thank you all so much.